You might think I'm crazy for saying this, but sometimes I'm really in the mood for a book that makes me cry. And some of y'all might think that I'm insane, but the girls who get it, get it. I want to talk today about books that have made me cry, or at least books with emotional plot lines, because if you want a book that makes you feel something, I got you covered. Also, all these books in this video, I rated either 4 or 5 stars, so you know they're at least Sophie approved, so let's get into it. Starting off strong with the 3rd and 4th books in the Boys of Tommen series. Oh my god. Oh my god. Now, I'm not saying that the first 2 books in this series, Binding and Keeping 13, are bad or not emotional at all. Those are also very good, very emotional books, but these 2 books in particular follow a different couple, Joey and Aoife, and these 2 made me absolutely bawl my eyes out. So, Saving 6 and Redeeming 6, books 3 and 4 of the Binding 13 series, are my personal favorites. These are like 6 out of 5 star reads from me. Oh my god. I just recently reread Saving 6 and annotated the entire thing. You can see there's so many tabs in there. This one I haven't reread yet because I don't have the emotional capacity to do that at the moment, but I am going to reread this one too and annotate it at some point. Obviously, you have to read this series in order. So although I am recommending you books 3 and 4, I would recommend reading books 1 and 2 first. Again, those are also incredibly emotional books. This story in general follows a group of kids, mostly high school kids, and they live in Ireland and they are all dealing with some serious problems, mostly family things. The first book follows Shannon, who lives in a big family, and she has a very bad family situation. She has an abusive father, and so she's working through that, and then she falls in love with this guy named Johnny, who is on the rugby team at school. And then these next 2 books follow her older brother Joey and his relationship and his story, and these are all just so emotional. Definitely check the trigger warnings for these. Like I said, lots about domestic violence and abuse, drug abuse. There's a lot in here, okay? So just check the trigger warnings, make sure you're okay reading it, but literally this whole series is amazing. I need to continue by reading Taming 7, but the 4 that I've read are all so emotional, and these 2 especially made me bawl like a little baby. So, off to a great start. The next one I want to recommend to you was probably my favorite book of 2024. I don't know, I might have to reread it because I read this book in April, and I've been saying since that it's my favorite standalone, but I've read so many good books since April, so it's kind of hard to rank it. But in April, I doubled down and read a 1,000-page fan fiction called Manacled. This is a fan fiction about Draco and Hermione that reimagines the world of Harry Potter after the books end, and it is just so heartbreaking and emotional. Oh my god, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm really getting goosebumps just thinking about this book. I honestly, once again, need to reread it, but again, do I have the emotional capacity to do so at this time? I'm not sure. Like I said, this book follows after the Harry Potter books, so it basically imagines that the war at the end of the Harry Potter books, instead of Harry Potter winning, Voldemort won, and basically everyone's dead. So Harry's dead, Ron's dead, all the teachers are dead, all their friends are dead. It's basically just Snape, Hermione, Draco, obviously, but Draco's evil. He's on Voldemort's side. Similar to the book The Handmaid's Tale, if you guys have read that one, it's a classic. It's kind of a post-war dystopian society where the Death Eaters, like Draco, are taking muggles, like Hermione, to come and basically be baby mamas for them so that they can grow their population because everyone has died after the war. So a very bad situation. Obviously, this is not a good place for Hermione to be in, but I know hearing this synopsis makes you think, how is this going to turn into a romance? Trust me. Okay, trust me. It's a lot. Okay, it's 1,000 pages. You go through so many emotional roller coasters. When I tell you I was sobbing, I was laughing, I was screaming because I was mad. There's so much emotion in this book. Again, goosebumps. Oh my god, do y'all see this? You probably can't see it, but trust me, I'm chill all over because this book was just so incredible. And I wish it was traditionally published, but of course it's a fan fiction, so it can't be. But that also means it's free, so you have no excuse for not to read it. You can find the PDF online. It's completely free. Oh my god. Again, check the trigger warnings. For most of these books, check the trigger warnings because there's so much in this book, especially for sexual abuse and violence and gore and things like that. Please check your trigger warnings, but oh my god, this was incredible. Manacled by Sen Lin Yu. Please, if you can, read it. Read it. On a slightly more chill note, let's talk about Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. I read this book at the beginning of 2023, and this was surprising to me how much emotion is packed into these pages. It's not that thick of a book. It's 500, 600 pages. It is a contemporary college romance, so not anything out of the ordinary. This book starts out by trying to convince you that it's a love triangle romance. That's how it's marketed, and I don't think it's like that at all. At the beginning, there is a little bit of a love triangle situation, but it gets resolved so fast, and we all know who's gonna win the love triangle, so it's really not about that. The story is more than that, but we follow our main character, Ariana, and she's going to college. She meets this guy named Noah, who is a football player, and by the way, Noah is to die for. chef's kiss. I love him so much. The majority of the story is not incredibly emotional. It's just a normal, classic college contemporary romance, right? She's finding her place in college. She's meeting lots of people. She's having a relationship with this guy. But then, about this far from the end of the book, there is a plot twist that had me absolutely rolling over in shock. Again, goosebumps. I can't explain to you how much in any other book I would hate this plot, like hate this plot twist, okay? But in this situation, not only did I love it, I was also sobbing my eyes out on New Year's Eve. I remember distinctively, like we were counting the ball drop at my house and my family was all in the living room like watching the TV and they're like, Sophie, come out. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm reading this book and sobbing my eyes out in my bed because of how terrible but also amazing this book is. Like terrible in that it pulls the emotions out of you, but trust me when I say it's so good. It's so good. This is another one I need to reread. I need to reread all of these, to be honest, because they're all fantastic, but it's crazy. And the way that the author makes me like a plot twist that I would usually hate in this book is really impressive. So try this one out. Like I said, it's a contemporary. It kind of eases you in slowly, but the ending will wreck you. So beware for that. But Sadie's Word by Megan Brandy, it's so, so good. Please read it. If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio is next. This is a masterpiece of a book, and I am so close, again, to rereading this one, but especially this fall, because this is a book that you kind of have to read in fall. It just, the atmosphere, the vibes are so autumnal. It's just the perfect time to read it. But this is also an incredibly emotional and sad and beautiful book in the way that it's sad. So this book follows 7 students at some kind of very fancy theater academy. They all study Shakespeare. And so throughout the course of a year, these students are all performing different Shakespeare plays, and the author is so genius. M.L. Rio is an absolute brilliant person because she uses the plays, the Shakespeare plays, not only to have the characters perform them, but all of the things that they perform relate to what's happening in their real life. And so they use the play to communicate to us and to each other, and it's all just connected and beautiful and wonderful. And if this sounds like confusing and intimidating, it's a little intimidating, I know, because I was intimidated to get into it, but trust me, I know some Shakespeare, but I don't know a lot of Shakespeare. This is not so hard to read that if you don't understand Shakespeare, you can't read it. Like, it is all explained to you. It all weaves together. I don't want to say it all makes sense, because through the middle part, maybe it doesn't, but that's kind of the beauty in it. You have to just be along for the ride and everything will come together at the end. That's so vague, okay? But just trust me with this. The main inciting incident in this book is, like I said, there are 7 seniors in this academy. There are other people in the younger grades, but they're all seniors. And one day, one of the seniors ends up dead. And so the question is, who did it? So it's a little bit of a murder, who did it, kind of. But there's also some very light hints of romance in here. There's a lot about friendships and character building and just everyone working through this together. They're going through so much in their lives. Everyone has something going on. And it's just sad and beautiful. And like I said, it's fall, it's Shakespeare, it's dark, it's eerie. Read this book in October, okay? And sob your eyes out over it. How it ends is so emotional. Like, I was in this bed right there sobbing at night. I'm sure my roommate thought I was insane. She's probably like, what was I doing? I was reading this book. That's what I was doing. And I was absolutely in tears over it. When I tell you this book will change your life, I'm not even kidding. It absolutely will. And you will probably cry over it like I did. So, but that's what you're here for, okay? You clicked on this video. You know what you're getting yourself into. So honestly, you're welcome more than anything else. Next is a duology, and that is the All In and Full Tilt duology by Emma Scott. This book, I feel like used to be more popular. Now no one talks about it, but this series is really, really good. I mean, it's not a series, it's a duology. There are only 2 books, but basically the first book follows Jonah, who is a glass blower, and he's also working for this rock star. I forget her name. I should know her name. Let me Google it. Casey, that's her name. So Casey is a rock star. She's living that rock star life, okay? She's always high on drugs, drinking, going crazy, out every night. And so she's very much like a crazy, needs to get her life together kind of girl, right? And Jonah is a glass blower, and he drives her home one night. He's like a chauffeur, and they have a connection, and then their romance creates. Now they're very much opposites because he is much more chill. He lives a quiet life. She is very popular, very much out there. But is this in the synopsis? Is this a spoiler? Okay, it's in the synopsis on Goodreads, so I'm not counting this a spoiler to say, but Jonah has only so long to live. So his time is running out, and he didn't expect to experience his connection with Casey when they first met, but he lets her crash at his house for a little while because he understands that she is on the road to destruction. And just their connection is just so beautiful. And like I said, he only has so much left, and so he's just spending the rest of it with her, and it's just so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. But when I tell you, the author knows, she knows that that our hearts were absolutely broken in two at the end of the first book. So in the second book, the other part of the duology, she kind of mends them back together. Like, trust me when I say it is a roller coaster to go through. So much emotion packed in. Like, you feel everything, you're sobbing, you're laughing, and it's all beautiful. But the second book does kind of mend your heart a little bit after the end of the first one. Again, not going to spoil anything, but this book was a 5-star series for me. The first book was 4 stars, the second one was 5, so together it's like a 5-star, and it's just so good. It's just so good. And like I said, not very popular anymore. So if you haven't picked this up, I would pick it up if I were you. Just trust me on this one, okay? I would not stray you guys wrong. I only give you the best recommendations, and these books are phenomenal. Next is Darling Venom. Now this one, honestly, I maybe shouldn't have put on the list because I did not cry at this book, but I was expecting to. I went into this book knowing it was super sad. Don't get me wrong, yeah, I was so sad in this book. Like, it's very, very sad. I just never shed an actual physical tear, but it is still an incredible book. I know so many people cry at this book. It's beautiful, but it's sad, and I want to put this on the list anyway because it could be the one for you. So I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just going to read what's on the back of this because I don't want to like spoil. But it says, I wasn't supposed to be on that roof on Valentine's Day. Neither was Kellen Marchetti, the school's designated freak. We met on the verge of ending our lives. Somehow the tattered strings of our tragedies tangled and tightened in an unlikely bond. So like I said, they were both in a very dark place in their life, and this is another one they have to really check the trigger warnings for because oh my gosh, it's kind of insane. But both in a really dark place. They met on a roof, and so for the next couple years they meet every day on Valentine's Day on the roof. Things go on from there, things happen, and we saw, well, not me, I didn't cry, but I was this close, okay? This book is also interesting because there are a lot of things in this book that are honestly funny, like genuinely funny. The way that she meets a character in this book, hilarious. But although there are so many funny moments in this book, so many light moments, there are a lot of other dark moments together. And I think the author does a good job at weaving in the happy with the sad and giving that whole rainbow of emotions in this one book. But also, like, there is just such a deep message in this book about just life and treasuring what you have and experiencing everything to the fullest. There's a lot about grief and loss, but also love and happiness. It's just the full trifecta of everything in this book. And so I gave it 4 stars, I think. It's so incredibly good, and you should pick it up. Next is the one only Song of Achilles. This book went so viral on TikTok 2020, maybe 2021. I read this one years ago and I did sob like a baby, okay? I was bawling my eyes out at this book. This is a Greek mythology retelling, so this one follows Patroclus and Achilles. For the people that say Patroclus, don't talk to me, okay? It's Patroclus. Let's just make that very clear. Some people also say Patrocles. I don't know, Patroclus, that's how I say it, but Patroclus is absolutely absurd. Anyway, it's Patroclus and Achilles. So basically, Achilles in this book is the son of very high king and queen, super powerful, popular, he's strong, he's brave, he's athletic, like he's got everything working for him. Patroclus comes to be Achilles' like right-hand man, not his servant. He like works under Achilles kind of, but they do everything together, and they go to train under Chiron to become big warriors and things like that. If you know the story, you kind of know what's going to happen in this book. I knew it was going to happen going into this book, and I still read this book out of my own free will, and I still sobbed at the end. When I tell you, there are probably actual tear stains in this book. It's just so amazing. Madeline Miller has this beautiful writing style. She almost writes in poetry. It's actually insane. And then someone who doesn't really love too much prose, like too much deep prose, because it's hard to get through sometimes, this one I got through. She's also written Circe, if you've read that book by her. I haven't read Circe, but I've heard good things, but this is her more popular book, I would say, and it's just incredible. And I, again, sobbed like a baby. So if you want that, pick up this one. Only a few more left. Next is the Stay With Me series by Nicole Fiorina. I've talked about this series a lot, I feel, on my channel, but it's because no one else does. I've only heard one other YouTuber talk about this book series. I want to say it's a trilogy, but I DNF'd the 3rd book, so I didn't like the 3rd one, but the first 2 are incredible. So Stay With Me and Even When I'm Gone are what I'm talking about here when I say that I sobbed in these books. So this book follows our main character, Mia, who is diagnosed as a sociopath. And so she goes to this school for mentally ill people. Now, it's not like a mental hospital, okay? That's like a separate building. But instead, it's like a school where these people go and they actually like go to classes and they learn and they live there. But everyone there is struggling with something serious. And like I said, she's diagnosed as a sociopath, which means that she basically doesn't feel anything. She describes herself as being emotionless. But when she goes there, she meets this guy named Ollie, who is the exact opposite. Ollie feels too much, people say, but he just feels everything so strongly. And so they balance each other so well because he is just so emotional and he feels everything, and she is supposedly like dry and unfeeling, but he kind of brings it out of her. You know, their relationship is just so beautiful. There's a lot of dark topics in this book, including sexual assault, drug abuse, like peer pressuring people, you know, things like that, because the people that they're surrounded by a lot of the times are just not healthy for them. But Ollie is so pure And Mia, she's just so deserving of someone like him. And so this book is just amazing. Once again, I'm getting goosebumps, but it's just so amazing and sad and wonderful. And then you move on to the sequel. And so whereas in the first book, Mia has no emotions and Ollie is feeling everything, she gets to a point where she starts feeling things because of their relationship mostly. And she's like getting to a point where she's getting a lot better. And then in the second book, something happens that I won't spoil, but basically now Ollie feels nothing. And so now she's like, I have to save you instead kind of thing. And it's just incredible. When I tell you these books will break your heart, but they're also so fast paced, so addicting. If you're in a reading slump, pick this book up. You will cry, but it'll also get you back into reading because it's just so enthralling. It sucks you in and now you're attached. And you have to continue reading the series. The Stay With Me series, book 1 and 2. Like I said, I didn't have to book 3. If you read it and you like it, go for it. Personally, I'm not gonna be picking it up. I just did not like it, but that's fine. First 2 books did it for me. They were both 4 stars. So good. You know, I couldn't get through this video without talking about some Throne of Glass books. So I have the entire series on my shelf up here. Long story short, I've cried for basically every single book in that series, okay? Besides Tower of Dawn, we don't talk about that one. But all the other ones have so many sad moments, so many happy moments. I talk about it so much, so y'all know this, okay? But if I had to pick one book out of the entire series that made me cry the most, it would ironically be the prequel. This is Assassin's Blade. This is the book that comes before the first book in the series. People have mixed feelings about how to read it, if you start with this one, then go through the series, or if you start with book 1, read book 2, then read this, then go to book 3. I'm more on team 2. I think you should probably read books 1 and 2 before picking up the prequel, because this is like a hard book to get into in that it doesn't hook you in like the first book does. So if you want to get into a huge fantasy series, you probably want to read the book that's going to suck you in first, and that would be Throne of Glass. And so I think this book personally just hits so much harder when you've already met the characters, you already know their backstories in books 1 and 2, and then you read this and you really understand what happened to our main character Selena, and then you absolutely sob. But that's just my opinion. This book follows, like I said, Selena before book 1. It's basically a series of 5 short stories about what happened to her in between her being a child and then her being, as we see her in book 1, which is an assassin coming out of the salt mines of Endovir. She was put in the salt mines for a year, and it's basically like a slave camp. Terrible experience. And then she comes out of that. Obviously her life has changed. She is a completely different person. She's broken and she's being taken to the castle. That is how book 1 starts, okay? But this book covers everything before that, and all the background you learn about our characters, especially Arabin, that son of a bitch. Oh my god. Let me just say, he is my least favorite character in the entire series. He's not the one main villain, but in my heart, he's the villain, okay? Anyway, but also Sam in this book. If you know who Sam is, you know. Okay? If you know, you know. If you don't know, read the first 2 books of Throne of Glass, you will know. Then pick up this book and sob your heart out, because the last 2 short stories in this book, oh my god. Sarah J. Maas was out for blood when she wrote this. I can't spoil a single thing, but let me just say, you're going to bawl your eyes out. And that's the truth. If you like Throne of Glass and you haven't read this, read it, okay? Read it. If you want to read Throne of Glass, read the first 2 books, read this, then go on and finish the series. This is incredible. There are probably tear stains in here. Oh my gosh, it's so sad, but so beautiful, but it's so sad. And then we have, I think, what's the most recent book on this list that has made me cry, and surprisingly so, because this book is controversial. Not many people like this book, or they like it, but they prefer the first book in the series, which is fine. You do you. But for me, I sobbed in this book. I cried. And that would be Reckless by Lauren Roberts. Now let me tell you one thing, okay? Everyone loves Powerless, and I get it, okay? Powerless is a good book, but I gave it 4 stars? I think it was 4 stars. I liked it a lot. Super fun and enjoyable, love the characters, but I thought it was a little bit copy-paste from a lot of other fantasy books that I've read recently. It wasn't very original. It didn't speak to me as much as something like this did. Now, everyone who reads this book says this book is boring, and as far as plot goes, I get it, okay? Nothing much happens. They're just traveling. That's basically the entire book, is they're moving places. I get it. But character-wise, this book was incredible for me. I love the conversations that Kai and Peyton had in this book. I, in fact, went and annotated it afterwards and added little tabs in for all the sections that I loved. Kai is just a good MMC. Like, genuinely, he's just such a good character, and I think this book really brought it out of him. Peyton I love too, but I think just seeing Kai's point of view in this book was amazing. And also, the way that the book starts versus how it ends. The prequel in this book, oh my god, I did not see that coming. The end of the book, however, the plot twist that made me cry, I did see coming, okay? From like halfway through, I predicted it. So I'm not saying it was a crazy original plot twist, but I will say is even though I predicted it, I still sobbed. So what does that tell you about me? It's predictable, it's easy, people have done it before, I get it, okay? But it's freaking sad. And I did didn't want it to happen, and it did happen. So I have vlog footage of me reading this book. I read it during my 24-hour reading challenge that I posted about a month ago, and you can literally see me in that video crying over the end of this book. So I don't care that it's predictable. I don't care that it's easy. I don't want to hear any of your complaints. This book so far has been my favorite book in the series, including the little novella. That one was just a whatever book. This one is 4.5 stars for me. It's so good. Cried like a baby, and I recommend it a lot. Just my opinion. And that, my friends, is the last book. So I'm covered in goosebumps from talking about all of these emotional books, but trust me when I say any one of these you pick up, if it doesn't make you cry, at least it will make you feel something. For me, books that make me feel something, I usually give a higher rating, which maybe is a little biased, but like if I'm crying over a book, you know the author wrote something to make me connect so deeply that my heart is breaking over a fictional character and fictional happenings, okay? And that maybe is something I should bring up in therapy. But I hope you got a good recommendation out of this video. Subscribe to my channel for more book recommendation videos and reading vlogs. I post every single Thursday, and I will see you guys next week for a new video. If any of these book recommendations absolutely tear your heart out, stomp on it and then put it back in your chest, don't say I didn't warn you, but also, you're welcome.